Hello, and welcome to the Creative Mojo podcast. This is a podcast about my love of knitting. My name is Joanne, and I'm obviously your host, and I'm coming to you, as I always do, from my home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I want to wish a very warm welcome to all my returning viewers. Thanks for coming back to check me out every time I record an episode. And if you're a new viewer, I hope that you'll enjoy what I talk about today and that you might consider coming back and watching again or watching some previous episodes. I record these days it's about every 3 weeks. I'm trying to do every 2 weeks, but my life doesn't always just work out with availability every 2 weeks. So at least every 3 weeks I put up an episode, and if you want to be informed when new episodes are coming out, if you can subscribe to me with the little subscribe button below here on YouTube, and you'll be notified in your feed for YouTube of when I have new episodes out. And also, if you enjoy this episode, it'd be great if you hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up. That's linked also down below. Those thumbs up for me and for any other podcasts you might enjoy help to put a podcaster higher in the rotation of suggested podcasts for other people who might be looking for new knitting podcasts to watch. So anyway, as I said, welcome. Today is Saturday, March 31st. It is Easter weekend for those of you who celebrate Easter. I can't honestly say that we really celebrate in my family, but I do have the extra bit of time off work. I have a 4-day weekend, which is very exciting. And tomorrow, which is Easter Sunday, is also my younger nephew's 12th birthday. He's an April Fool's baby, so it's Easter Sunday and April Fool's Day and Liam's birthday. So we are going to have a bit of an Easter brunch basically at my mother's house tomorrow, which will be a lot of fun. My husband and I already took my nephew his birthday present. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen we gifted him an electric guitar this year for his birthday. He and his older brother are both very musically inclined. They both play other instruments, and Liam had been, and my husband is a guitar player professionally. That's what he does for a living. He's a singer, songwriter, guitar player, a very accomplished guitar player, and plays guitar, banjo, mandolin, ukulele, pretty much anything, that kind of instrument with strings on it. And Liam had been expressing interest in the electric guitar for a little while now, and when he comes over to visit us, he would often go down to our basement and fiddle around on one of Tim's guitars and stuff. So we thought that would be a nice 12th birthday present, and my husband spent some time finding it's basically a three-quarter scale guitar. So it's just like any other electric guitar, but it's slightly smaller, so perfect for someone who's not fully grown yet. And we took it over to him yesterday, and with a very small amp that my husband's lending him for a little while till he sees whether he really takes to it or not. And if he keeps at it and takes to it and he's really enjoying it, then we will actually get him his own amp. So in the meantime, we took the guitar and the amp over, and he was very, very excited about it. And my sister texted me first thing this morning and said that he'd been up since 6:30 playing on it, and they had to have a little chat about volume at like 7 in the morning on the amp and electric guitar. So anyway, that's kind of very briefly kind of what's going on here with me this weekend. Other than that, I plan on I've been doing some knitting, and I plan on doing some more knitting over the week. I'm excited it's been a long time since I had 4 days off in a row, I think since maybe Christmas. So I always I always enjoy the chance in and amongst other, family things and stuff like that, to get the chance to do, to spend some serious quality knitting time. I've been watching RuPaul's Drag Race, which I had never watched before. I know a lot of people watch and really enjoy that, and I certainly have a number of friends who are big fans of that show, and I'd never watched it before. And I've been really enjoying it. I think I watched the previous 2 seasons, like season 8 and season 9. It's kind of if you've never seen it, it's a really fun combo of sort of America's Next Top Model plus Project Runway, but with drag queens. And it's very entertaining. I also find it very, very interesting, informative, and quite charming to watch in terms of the honesty with which they deal with a lot of the things that are the realities for people that maybe live a little bit more out of the mainstream than other people. And I think that's fantastic. I think the celebration of, I know on one of the episodes I was watching last night, they were talking about what it's like to color with all the crayons in the color box and sort of see life in that way. And I really appreciate that. And I'm enjoying the show a lot. So anyway, enough about all of that. I have a fair amount of knitting to show you today. So I'm going to get right into that. I think I'm calling this episode today All Whips and No FOs, and that's because I have all whips and no FOs, obviously. But I do have actually quite a lot of whips, quite a lot of works in progress on the go at the moment. I've been switching back and forth between a number of projects. 3 of them, as you'll see, are cardigans. So I haven't finished, I haven't finished anything in a while, but I've been working on lots of different things, different projects to suit different moods and stuff. So let's see where to start. I'm going to start with this project, which is in one of my beautiful Fat Squirrel fiber bags. I have a couple of these. I have 2, I think. Oh, you'll see the other one in a bit. 2 of her larger bags and a couple of her medium-sized bags, and I love them. They are some amongst my very, very favorite. This wonderful library card bag. And yeah, so living in this bag is, oh, that wasn't the one I was going to show you first, but I will start with it anyway. I picked up a work in progress that I've shown you on the podcast before, but probably not since kind of around Christmas or maybe New Year's, somewhere in early January. Maybe is the last time I showed off this, I think. And I picked it back up again 2 weeks ago and put some substantial work on it, and I'm really pleased. So this is my Birkin sweater, which is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter. I'm sure most of you will have heard of Caitlin Hunter as a designer. She's very, very popular right now. She's got a lot of really beautiful patterns out. So yes, this is the front. So when I last showed this to you, I was, progress creepers on the back here. I was here. Get that coordinated. So I was about here, just past the white row of white, for partway through the white row of white flowers there in the color work. And I picked this up and I powered all the way through the rest of the color work, which was very exciting. I was very pleased about. So this is one of my first, reasonably sized color. I've done a few little kind of color work projects. I did a couple of color work hats in the past, and I've done a couple of mittens that had and gloves and things, or fingerless gloves that had sort of very basic color work pattern, or simple color work around the band or stuff like that. And this is my first real sort of substantial color work. And this was an extra challenge because this is, a lot of it is 3 color work. Obviously not up here, but when you get in down here, a lot of these rows are actually 3 colors of color work, which was something entirely new to me and a bit of a challenge because as I haven't done a lot of color work, I didn't really have a great technique for it. As I said, that's the back that I'm showing you there. This is the front. As you can partially tell by the fact that the neck scoops down a little in the front. But yeah, I had to really play around with how to hold my yarns, what was comfortable for me, what was working, and how to hold them, particularly when I was using 3 colors in a row. And I am happier with it in some places than others. I'm going to give you a close-up. As you can see, in some spots here, it's pretty, it's kind of puckered. And I was also playing with how to manage the floats. I'm going to show you the inside a little bit. The first few, there's the inside of it. The top part up here, I was catching my floats a lot, as you can see. I was catching them every about 3rd stitch, and I stopped doing that so much down below. As you can see, I have longer floats there. partially, as I said, just because I was really kind of experimenting with technique and figuring out what was going to work for me, was the best way. I did some of it holding some yarn in my left hand and some yarn in my right hand. I watched a number of videos about color, other people talking about color work and stuff, and I heard a couple of people talking, quite knowledgeable people talking about that it doesn't necessarily really matter. You know, we've heard a lot, I think, in the world of color work about how to dominant colors and where you hold, which yarn you hold in which hand, and how that makes a dominant color and stuff. And I was listening to some of these videos and they were saying, actually, that doesn't necessarily always matter. If you have good tension, that it shouldn't change the dominance. So, which I don't know whether that was true for me or not, because obviously tension is something I'm still playing with and trying to get right. But eventually, as I got into the latter part of it, I ended up holding both colors. I would hold the two main colors in my right hand. When on the rows where there were 3 colors, I would hold one in my left and I would hold 2 in my right. And when I was doing the bottom where it's just 2 colors, I was holding them both in my right hand, which is how I normally knit with a right hand thrower. We'll see how that all turns out. You know, I'm relying on seeing what happens when I block this, as to how much the color work in it may relax, how much the puckering may hopefully. I'm hoping that the tension will even out a little bit when I wash it, particularly down here at the bottom where I find that it's sort of ruching a bit. So I want to talk just briefly about the construction. I'll talk more about that when I finish the sweater and have washed and blocked it and tried it on and stuff. But the design itself obviously is gorgeous. The colorwork charts, the pattern is really, really beautiful. This is knit out of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is the yarn that is called for in the pattern. The pattern is published in Lane Magazine, issue 3, I think. And it is a beautiful, beautiful design, but I have seen some other people talk about it, and I have looked on some other another podcast or two, excuse me, and I've looked at a few of the pictures and stuff, and I'm a little worried about how it's going to fit because of the construction. And I have noticed this actually in a couple of Caitlin's patterns. I know I've noticed this a bit in the I can't remember the name of it now. It's the sweater, the Zweig sweater that a lot of people are knitting right now that has a lacework yoke as opposed to color work. That she doesn't put a lot of increases in during the patterning. Most traditional sort of yoke sweaters have kind of regularly staggered increases hidden in, like, if this was color work on a sort of traditional color work sweater, here there's a row of increases right between this part and this part, and then there's not any more increases until you get to finishing that and do this last row. There's one row of increases there, and then there's another row of increases directly below there, and there are a lot of increases. It's like, you know, knit 3 increase, knit 3 increase, something like that. I think it's different for different sizes, but certainly at my size, there were a lot of increases happening in one row. And the traditional color work yokes often would have less numbers of increases there, and then increases staggered through the color work, kind of cleverly built into the color work, which makes your yoke kind of grow a little more slowly at a more consistent rate throughout the yoke. This, because it has, like, all of this section here has, from here to here, has no increases in it. The shaping will be a little bit odd, and I have noticed that, you know, a lot of people, the sweater comes down a bit, where the armhole is, it comes down a little beyond the armhole, and then because there are no increases through here, that when you raise your arms up, the sweater kind of rides funny, sits funny. So we're going to see how that all turns out. I'm hoping that it will all miraculously work out despite that it will block out well, and that I won't mind too much that it has that band of color work that isn't necessarily shaped exactly like your body. I mean, as you can see, your body slopes here it doesn't kind of go in a tube in that section. So we'll see how that turns out. But I really enjoyed the knit. I enjoyed the challenge. The color work so far. I really enjoyed the yarn, and now that I'm just past the color work into the body, it's just pretty much straight stockinette to the hem. Same with picking up the sleeves, straight stockinette down for the sleeves. So as I said, so I'll power along through that soon enough. As I said, I'm using Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. The main color for the body that I'm using is Sweatshirt, I believe. And then the colors I used in the color work, this portion up top with the leaves here, this lovely dark navy blue, is Old World. And that's how much I have left of that. So, well, more than at least half a skein, probably slightly more than half a skein of or ball of that left. The purple is Thistle. The white, or the sort of cream color, is Fossil. And the blue that's in there is Tartan. So those 3 balls, I have about the same amount left, and that it's probably slightly over half a ball. And I have slightly less of the Fossil, as you can see if I show it that way maybe. But I have enough here, and I'm done with these 4 colors. I definitely have enough here that I could do some fun color work mittens. If I could probably do 2 color work, but I definitely, if I mixed up the colors and used all 4, would get like a nice pair of mittens or something. So I will definitely use that for some color work of some sort in mittens, I do think, because it would be a shame to let these beautiful yarns sit around. I really am enjoying working with the Brooklyn Tweed Loft. Did I say Shelter earlier? It is Loft. I hope I said that right, but it is Loft, which is the fingering weight. It is a little bit heftier than what I'm used to in fingering weight, but it's such nice yarn to work with. I know I used Shelter, which was the worsted weight in this, back when it first came out, and I know people talked about that it kind of came apart easily because it's a woolen spun, very lightly spun and plied 2-ply yarn, and it was a little fragile. I don't find this fragile at all. It hasn't come apart on me. Being 100% non-superwash wool is really nice. It's got some Targhee in it. I think it's Targhee and wool, just right, American wool blend. It's really nice in terms of things like you can spit splice it, and it's grippy enough that, you know, if your needle pulls out in any spots, it doesn't run down at all kinds of good things like that. So, and I think it's going to be a nice, warm, and yet light. It's light and airy because it's woolen spun. So it's going to be a nice, light, but warm sweater, winter sweater. That I probably won't be able, by the time I get finished it, I may not be able to wear it until next fall. Although where we live here in the godforsaken north, as we say sometimes, my husband and I, but here in Alberta, we can get cold weather any time of the year. I mean, we do get about 4 months of summer, and we do get nice, warm, hot weather in late June through mid-August. But we can get colder times too. So we can get weather that is, even in the summer, sometimes cool enough that at night you might benefit from a sweater. So, and in fact, we have that weather going on right now. It's normally think of Easter weekend as spring, right? But it has been unseasonably cold here the last couple of days. We had snow yesterday, not too much of it. Thankfully, they forecasted for more than what we got actually here in Calgary. And then we're supposed to get some more snow tomorrow. So it is a sort of cold and snowy Easter weekend. Although today is, while it is cooler temperature, it's beautiful and sunny out. So anyway, that's one of the projects I've been working on, is my Birkin. The other one that has gotten quite a lot of work since we last spoke is another sweater. I am still all about the sweaters. That's all I want to knit, really, honestly. Right now I'm working on a few other projects that aren't sweaters, but really I have 3 sweaters on the go, as you'll see, and I would love to cast on 2 or 3 more. But I'm stopping myself from doing that because I want to get at least one of these sweaters off the needles before I cast on yet another sweater. But the last time I showed you, this is my Beaumont cardigan. It is a pattern from Blacker Yarns. I didn't write down here, but maybe in my past, yes, my past show notes, excuse me for looking down, but the designer is Sonia Barjalowska, I believe her name is. And the pattern is published through Blacker Yarns, and I showed it to you a while ago. I had finished, I think, the knitting on the sleeves and upper part of the body. I since blocked that. The pattern calls, you knit this upwards from the sleeve, so you knit up this way, across the top there, and down the other sleeve, and then you block that, sew it up. So I've done the sewing up. I'm actually fairly pleased. I can show you with my mattress stitching through here. It looks all right, I think. I'm not very skilled at mattress stitching, and it's not my favorite thing to do, but I actually feel like it looks pretty good. I matched up the pattern on either side pretty well, so I'm quite pleased with that. And then you pick up stitches all the way around the bottom of that section, which I did here, and you knit down for the body. So I've been just powering away on, this is what I've been knitting on the last week or so. Let's see, this is the front, and as you can see, I'm that far down in the body. It's really easy, and just stockinetting around now all the way down to the body. The fun thing with this one is when I get to the bottom of the body and knit the bottom hem, I will be done. All I will have to do is weave in a bunch of these ends, and the sweater will be finished. So that's a really great incentive to just power through this. Again, I'm not 100% certain. I have tried this on. We'll see what the fit is when the whole body is knit. It is, I had a little bit of gauge issues with it. The yarn that, it's a Blacker yarn, I can't remember which one, that's called for in the pattern. And it says fingering weight on the pattern page in Ravelry and stuff, but when I actually looked at the pattern and the yarn and looked at it on the Blacker site, it's a sport weight that they listed as there. I suspect it's slightly beefier than what I'm using, which is Knit Picks Stroll Tweed. Is what I'm using for it in the Down Heather color. And my gauge was not great, and I didn't want to go up another needle size because I felt like the fabric would be too loose. So I sort of powered through it. I made a few adjustments in the body to compensate for that, to knowing that I was knitting at a slightly tighter gauge, smaller gauge than what the pattern called for. But some of it is, a lot of it is in measurement, and I was pretty darn sure that I had exactly the right measurement from when the sleeve ends here to where you start the neck opening here. I think I might have had an extra repeat or two, but I was pretty sure that I had the right measurement according to what the pattern said that should be. And yet I find that the width of that part of the body, it's wider than I thought it was going to be. And it seems, it may have stretched a little bit when I blocked it because, of course, having knit in that direction, it wants to stretch a bit that way. But I've tried it on again since I started knitting down. I tried it on when it was just the patterned part, the cabled part here, and the sleeves, and I was worried about the width across, that I had too much width across there. But I recently did try it on again, since I've got a decent little amount, about 8 inches maybe of the body done there. I put it onto waist yard and tried it on again, and I think it's going to look fine, even though it is going to be a little more positive ease across there than I had expected it to be. I still think it's going to look good, and it's just going to be such a comfy garment. This is a nice, soft, lightweight yarn. This will be a nice piece that'll actually just be next to, it's a super next to skin soft, and it's light enough that, you know, with just a cami underneath or whatever, I can wear it as a sort of winter, but not super, super heavyweight garment. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I expect I will actually finish this now fairly quickly if I just keep on at it. Because as I said, there's not even any increases needed or anything in the body. It's just going to be stagnant in the round until I get to the right length to do the hem. So yeah, that's the Beaumont cardigan. And as I said, that's been getting a lot of work the last week or so. Once I got finished on the color work on the Birkin, I switched back to this. And then I actually have a third sweater that I cast on and I have knit a little bit on. Oh, this was my other, I should say this was my other fat squirrel bag, that large sweater size fat squirrel bag that I was talking about. Love this bag too. She makes like the best bags in my opinion. If I had the money and only had to have one kind of bag, I would have all fat squirrel bags. I just love her bags. This is another lovely, this is a box bag, sweater bag, and I'm sorry, but I don't remember. I don't even think it has a tag in it. This was gifted to me a number of years ago. And I don't remember the name of the designer, but it's a really nice sort of large size box bag. And in it is the other sweater I cast on. This is the Weekender by Andrea Mowry. I showed you this yarn an episode or two ago, and that I had swatched with this yarn and stuff. And I was, what was that? Oh, okay. I was desperate to start working with this. I couldn't stop myself from casting on, but I did stop myself in terms of putting it down and committing to finishing one of those other two sweaters that are well on their way before I go any farther with this. Isn't this pretty? I love this color. I love this yarn. This is Beaver Slide Dry Goods. It's their 2-ply merino worsted in the color Snowberry. I wanted to call it Winter Rose, but no, Snowberry. It is so pretty, and it is so soft and squishy and fat and woolly and fabulous. I have a slightly denser gauge than is called for. Actually, no, my gauge is fine. Sorry, but to get gauge, I had to. It's a slightly denser fabric than it probably would be. It's a slightly thicker worsted weight than some yarns, and it's probably giving me and perhaps it's also how I knit, but it's going to give me a slightly denser, heavier fabric than probably some people's sweaters would be. I don't mind that at all. This is going to be a great throw on over t-shirt or long sleeve tee, warm sweater that will be great in the winter, but also, you know, a nice fall and early spring garment to keep you warm. I love it. It's going to be fantastic. It's fun. You knit it actually inside out because the pearls, this side is actually going to be the outside, the pearl stitches. But the way she has the pattern set up, and it's got this lovely design up the front and back where there's a slit stitch line. But you knit it actually in knit stitch, stockinette stitch, and then at a certain point you turn it inside out so that pearl side ends up as the side that shows. The hem, it calls for in the pattern a tubular cast on, which I fiddled around with and tried out, and I wasn't super happy with how it was looking, and I thought, what the heck, I'm just gonna cheat and do the long tail cast on, which I really like and I'm very used to doing. And I've learned how to do a long tail cast on that still has good stretch in it. I've learned how to do it so it's not flaring or anything, but it's not super, super tight. So I'm quite happy with how that looks. So as soon as I've got one at least of those two sweaters off the needle, I will get going with some more seriousness on this. As I said, it's kind of just resting for a little while now. But, and then I do have another couple of sweaters that I want to cast on after that. So it's going to be it seems like it's going to be all about the sweaters for me all year, as I think it is for lots of people. Anyway, so those are my three larger projects, and I have a couple of smaller projects to show you. I finally have put some significant work in on my pattern socks. I felt it was way past time with our pattern socks cowl, which I will talk about a bit at the end. I finished one sock, which I'm really pleased with. I thoroughly enjoyed knitting these. These are Irving Socks by Jacqueline Salem of the Brooklyn Knit Folk podcast. It's such a pretty pattern. Very easy, beautiful, and looks wonderfully interesting, but it is simple to knit. It is a, I think, 6-row pattern repeat that's very easy to memorize, very easy to know where you are in it, I found anyway. I only have to look at the pattern very occasionally for reference, but I can knit the pattern repeats without having to look at the pattern all the time. It has some garter stitch rows on the back of the leg, short row heel, and I did contrast heel and toe. I think her pattern just calls for contrast toe, but I had enough yarn to do both, so I did. Really like how this fits, how it looks, and I'm partway through the leg of the second sock, that far into the second sock. So these are actually seeing a little more work right now because these are patterned and have some interest in. My other 2 sweaters are both just stockinette in the round bodies now, the 2 that I'm actively working on. So when I want something that has a little more challenge to it, because my other 2 projects that I'm showing you are also basically all stockinette. So these are what I pick up for when I need a little more challenge, and I have another pair of pattern socks that I will cast on after these to keep me, you know, in something with a little more challenge than stockinette when I feel I need that. As I've talked about before with these socks, these are knit with some lovely yarn that I won from the Cloud Society podcast. It's the Earl Grey Fiber Co. The color is, it's a Darjeeling sock, and the color is Dickens. So pretty in that very pale sage green gray color. And the heels and toes are a little mini from Seawall Fibers that I got at Knit City last year. So those are my one and only pair of socks that are seeing any. I have a couple other pairs of socks that are whips, but they haven't seen any work at all in a while. So the 2 other things that I have been working on, this was my go-to, this one here. Which is in a little bag that I made myself. Oh, and this bag that my socks were in, I also got from, along with that yarn, I got from the Cloud Society podcast. Kimberly, who's one of the hosts of that podcast, made this bag as part of the gift I won for a certain number of viewers prize draw, I think is what they had. But anyway, she made me this very cute little bag. I really like it. It's perfect. It's small, and it's perfect for little project like that. Very cute. Anyway, and this is a bag I made myself. It's one of mine. And in this is living the project that I worked on the last week of my show that I was doing, which is closed now, closed 2 weeks ago. I needed a new just stockinette in the round project. I had finished a pair of vanilla socks I was working on, and I just needed something mindless that I could knit around and around and around on in the booth while I was doing my show, and this is perfect. It's perfect for that. This is a fun little project. I'm making a cowl. This is just a pattern I'm essentially improvising because I'm knitting it in the round, as you can see, so it'll be double thickness. So I started with a provisional cast on. I don't remember how many stitches I have on here, but it might be like 160 or something like that. So I did a provisional cast on, and then I'm just knitting a tube, and I will just keep knitting on that, and then till it's long enough. I hope I can get it long enough that I can wear it doubled, and then I will graft these stitches to the other end when I get there. So super, super easy, boring, mindless knitting. This is going to be my sort of carry around purse knitting for the next while. Like, I have a dentist appointment on Monday morning, so these are what will come with me to that and stuff like that. And they were perfect for at work. I think I knit most of this in about 3 nights while I was doing my show. So the yarn I'm using for this, and I plan for this to be a 2 skein project, is Sea Turtle Fiber Arts. Sea Turtle Fiber Arts is a local to me dyer. I really like her her stuff. This is her Ridley sock base, and it's 80/20 Super Rush Merino and nylon. That tag says Cupid, but that's not actually that color. So this color, I wound this up ages ago and lost the tag for it. I'm pretty sure that this color was, I seem to remember this color was called Candy Cane, maybe. But as you can see, it's hot pink and a sort of, and fuchsia and light and white and cream, and then there's some sort of, into a sort of orangey red in there. It looks a little more red on the camera, but it's actually an orangey red. And yeah, you can see that those colors in there pretty well. And I picked up, and I only had one skein of that, but I knew I wanted to use 2 skeins in this cowl to make it long enough to put it around twice when it's completed. And so I was at my local yarn store, Stash, 2 weeks ago probably, and I saw that they were carrying some sea turtle fiber arts, and I picked up this skein. This color is called Cupid. It's really interesting. This is pretty much all the same colors as this, but the intensities are different. I think there's more fuchsia in this. This has a little bit of red, that same cream and pink and orangey red. So they're close. They're like cousins. This one's got more cream color than this one. So, but they're certainly close enough. Like I looked at them and went, oh man, they match well enough. What I will do is knit till I'm almost out of this, and then I will stripe this in for a bit, take over with this, and then when I get to the, and I'll save a little of this back, I think, so that I can do the same at the other side where I, just before I graft it, so that it will just sort of stripe and blend from this to this. So one side of the cowl will be a little more saturated, and the other one will be a little lighter. I think that will give a beautiful effect. It's all definitely still in the same colors and color range, so I think it'll look great. I'm looking forward to that. It's not a very exciting project in the sense of being nothing but plain stockinette in the round, not even any increases or decreases or anything, but great for when you're in that mood, or for when you need that kind of project, for, you know, places where you want to knit but you don't want to have to think about what you're knitting, meetings, work, whatever, you know. And I have no kind of sense of urgency in that, so that'll just get worked on from time to time. The last project, and this is probably the one that will get the most amount of work over the next few, the next week or so, because it does have a bit of a deadline, is yet another stockinette project, not in the round yet. Actually, will never be in the round. It's a baby sweater. A friend of mine, my friend Diane, asked me if she could pay me to knit a baby cardigan for her first grandchild, who is being born very, very soon. So I really need to, sometime at the beginning of April, so I really need to get this finished quickly, because I am knitting, it is a newborn size, so I want to get it done into Diane to get to the parents ASAP, so I really need to kind of focus on this. This is actually a baby cardigan I have knit many, many times. It is loosely based on a pattern called Sock Yarn Top Down Baby Cardigan, which is actually, that's a free pattern on Ravelry by Calana, C-A-L-A-N-A, Calana Crafts. I'll put it in the show notes, which reminds me, by the way, I apologize. I didn't do show notes for the last 2 episodes, but I will for this, for sure, for sure. I was busy, and episodes are getting posted in the middle of the night, and it's bad, and I didn't do show notes. Anyway, there will be show notes for this episode on Ravelry in the Creative Mojo podcast group. So, as I said, this is loosely based on that pattern, which is a free pattern. And that pattern is actually much more of a recipe than it is really a pattern in the way it's written. And I basically took that a number of years ago. I took that and I kind of adapted it, made some modifications and changes, and have sort of morphed it into my own version of that. It's a simple top-down raglan button-up cardigan. You can see I'm just past the little decreases that now I knit straight down, do a little shaping here, go straight down. I'm into the raglans, and of course, because it's a baby sweater, it's gonna just zoom by, and especially because it's a newborn baby sweater. But like that little section there is the top of the shoulders. You pick up and knit a collar band around the top. I like to do on this pattern. It's got a little stand-up collar, and I do collar, button bands, and edging around the bottom of this, like ribbing. It's not ribbing though. Edging around the bottom of the sweater and edging around the sleeves. I do in garter stitch. It's really cute, and it has, like I said, a button band on the front, and you put some cute little buttons on it. This is the same yarn essentially as the sweater, the Beaumont cardigan I was showing you. It's Knit Pick Stroll tweed. This color is Shiraz tweed. I had this in my stash for a while, and I thought this was great. My friend Diane, who asked me to knit the sweater, said she wanted something red. They don't know the sex of the baby, and they won't know till the baby's born. So I thought this is actually a nice red with these little pops of tweed of yellow and green and blue that I actually think in this cardigan will look perfectly great on a boy or a girl. I thought it was a great, totally wonderful color for a little kid of any sex, either sex. So yeah, that's what I'm knitting it with. And as I said, it's interesting. This is the same yarn as the Beaumont cardigan I'm knitting, but at a much, much denser gauge, because that cardigan is being knit on a 3.75 millimeter needle, I do believe. And this is a 2.5 millimeter is what I knit the sweater on. It's nice. It actually makes a nice dense fabric that's pretty sturdy, that's pretty warm, and this yarn wears so well, particularly a dense fiber. I wish I brought them over to show you, but I have mittens that I knit out of Stroll Tweed on a 2.75 millimeter needle, I think, and I wear them all the time in the winter, and they look still brand new, which is amazing. So, and that this is, because it is a superwash, it will be machine washable on a delicate cycle and just lay flat to dry. So it's pretty easy care for a parent of a newborn baby. As I said, I've knit this multiple times. I think I've gifted this pattern in different yarns. Just always using superwash so that they can machine wash the sweater. I think I've gifted this sweater probably 6 or 8 times. So I know that it's one that people have really enjoyed putting on their little newborn babies. And it fits them pretty good up till about 5 or 6 months old. So, and as I said, Canadian winter baby, there's probably plenty of times in between mid-April and when they get to outgrow it where they can still wear this sweater. So, but I do need to really kind of press on this. So this is what I'm going to be knitting on for the next little bit, I do think. Hopefully, if I can record again in 2 weeks, which I hope, that should be a finished object by then for sure. So that is all of the many projects that I have been working on. I said I don't have any finished objects because I've been spreading it around. I think I showed you the last episode a hat that I was working on. I've done a little bit more on that, but not enough that it felt like being worth showing to you. But that should be done for the next episode as well, as that's also a gift for another friend. So that's all my knitting for this week. The last thing that I just wanted to talk about quickly, and you have to excuse me, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place a bit too. I have new glasses, you may be able to tell, and they are my first ever progressive lenses, and I'm still adjusting to how to see out of them, and the distance from me to my camera is in this funny spot where trying to find the sweet spot where I'm not looking at myself and it's a bit of a blur is a bit of an interesting to see. If I look down a bit to the distance part of the glasses, I can see over there great, not as great here. It's the middle part of the progressive lenses that is really what I need for this distance, and it's just a challenge to kind of keep moving my head. So my apologies if I seem a bit weird and off and like I'm doing a lot of this. It's because I'm trying to find the place where my own image in the camera isn't all blurry. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to mention is a KAL that we have going on in our group, a year-long KAL that's going on. That's the Pattern Socks KAL. There's one finished object thread that you can post your finished object pattern socks in all year long. Every pair you post in there is eligible for prizes all year long. I'm doing 6 prizes over the year, so every 2 months I'm drawing for a prize. I drew at the end of February for the first prize. The end of April will be the second prize that I will draw for. So every post other than Linda's post that won, she won for her post number 24 for the end of February draw. So that particular post number 24 will not be eligible. If I draw that, I will just draw again. Anything other than that, every other post in the thread is all still eligible for the next prize, and it will stay that way through the end of the year. So it's exciting. I think there are about 46 pairs of socks in there so far, which is fantastic. The only rules really are that you have to be a member of the group, and it has to be a pair of pattern socks started after January 1st and finished before December 31st, 2018. And they do have to be patterned. As I said, they do have to involve, they can't be vanilla socks, and that includes vanilla self-striping socks. There are some kind of gray areas in there, and I'm going to leave it up to your discretion. If you think it's a pattern sock, for example, somebody asked me about a pair of socks. I think it was one of the, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a sock knitting competition that goes on every spring, and where you get patterns, and if you finish that pattern in time, I think you go on to the next round and get another pattern, something like that. And these socks were essentially kind of a vanilla sock, but they had some beading at the top, and then they had pattern that was stitched on afterwards. And she asked me if that counted, and I said, yeah, I think so. I mean, the beading makes it more than a vanilla sock, and adding on the duplicate stitch makes it more than vanilla sock. So I'll let you use your discretion a bit as to if you think it's a pattern sock, if you think it was more than just stockinette in the round all the way down, up and down the sock, which is the definition of a vanilla sock, then it will be eligible. But so just no vanilla socks, and obviously no striping in it. I think I kind of feel like even if you put your own striping in, that really is still just a vanilla sock. You're not doing any pattern stitches anywhere on it. You're not doing any beading or lace or cables or texture or anything like that. All you're doing is switching the yarns and continuing to knit a vanilla sock, just switching colors every once in a while. So, but other than that, enter away. It's great to see all the people that have entered so far and all the patterns that are in there. You can enter multiple times. And the next prize that I will give away, which I will draw for at the very end of March, probably March 31st or April 1st, is this lovely little sock set from Bluebird Yarns, who's a Canadian dyer out of Ontario, I think she is. I've ordered yarn from her a couple of times. I really like her colors. I haven't actually knit with it yet, but it's a super soft. This is an 80/20, very nice base. You can tell it's nice and tight twist, springy and fun. And this colorway is the Long Winter, which I really liked. It's a Little House on the Prairie colorway. She does sort of themed colorways. She has Jane Austen ones, and she has these Little House on the Prairie ones. I can't remember what other, but I really like her color sense a lot. This yarn is really pretty, and this little mini came with it, which I thought, it didn't actually come with this yarn. It came in the package with this and another yarn I bought for myself, just a little add-on, but I thought it would make a nice, if you were so inclined, cuffs and toes, or cuffs and heels, or heels and toes, however you want to do that. So I'm tossing that in. So this will be the next prize coming up. So get your pattern socks in and for a chance to win that beautiful yarn. And that is everything for today. And I can see we're sitting here at about 50 minutes, so it's a good time to end the episode. I would like to thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. As I said, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. I hope that you'll come and join our Ravelry group as well. And there's a introduce yourself thread there. And if you have any questions for me, there's a thread for that, or my show notes are posted there, and they will be posted for this episode. So if you have questions for me on anything I talked about on this episode, that's a good place to put them there or right here on YouTube. So, like I said, I am planning to record again in 2 weeks. So I will see you in 2 weeks. And until that time, happy knitting.